Back in 1999, Motor Trend released an article on the first Mercedes-Benz E55 Amg. They said it was a sports sedan that thought it was a Corvette, and the article went on to list other cars that the subtle luxury sedan was faster than. Back then, a 16-year-old Alex didn't want to hear it. I was an American car nut, as evident in this picture of me standing next to my first car, a 1988 Trans Am GTA that I saved to buy by working at Burger King. I had never even touched a Mercedes at this point in my life, and AMG was still pretty new to the mainstream, so I just simply didn't want to believe that the almighty Corvette, my favorite car of all time, could be beat by some rich guy's Euro car. Fast forward a few years, and I'm a Mercedes-Benz apprentice technician test driving E55s every week, and my mind started to change. I realized I can appreciate AMG and still love raw American muscle. These things can coexist even in this crazy world that we live in now. Fast forward to today, and my collection is split right down the middle, well, except for this electric car thingy and this twin turbo blue car that I've yet to reveal. I own an E55 sedan, an E55 wagon, another E55 wagon that I've yet to reveal, a C63 AMG, and then on the American side, a turbo Trans Am, a really quiet Chevy Caprice, a Cadillac Escalade, and a Whipple supercharged truck that, you guessed it, I've yet to reveal, except to my Patreon people, link down below. But my true love affair with the 210 chassis E55, the first E55 ever made, began after buying a 1999 E55 to flip. I quickly realized I couldn't sell the car. It was too good. I drove it for 3 years before selling it, and now I kind of regret it. So in this video, I'm going to show you why the 210 chassis E55 is one of the greatest AMG cars ever built, and why I think they'll go up in price very soon. But first, something I wish I started using a long time ago, since I've been able to grow a beard since I was like 8, and that would be Harry's.com. This is the Harry's starter set, which includes a beautifully weighted handle with a textured grip, a 5-blade razor cartridge, Harry's foaming shave gel with aloe, you're gonna love this stuff, and a travel cover. This entire set is only $3 if you go to harrys.com/LegitStreetCars or click on my link down below.
So I've used a ton of razors, and let me tell you, these are quality. And the razor blade refills are only a couple of dollars. Best part is Harry's donates 1% of their sales to help out our veterans, and they're donating $1 million worth of shaving supplies to hospitals. Just like a baby, oh yeah. So quit overspending on razors at the store and start shaving with Harry's today by going to harrys.com/LegitStreetCars or just by clicking on my link in the video description box to claim your $3 starter set. Big thanks to Harry's for sponsoring this video. Now this is a 1999 E55 AMG, a car that none of you should be sleeping on. All right, here we go. The original E55 AMG, the 210 chassis, my favorite AMG car of this era, and the last to retain the classic square Mercedes styling with the famous monoblock wheels. So if you remember, this is one of the first cars built after Mercedes and AMG officially got married and were officially in cahoots to build performance cars. So they had the C36 and the C43 and this car as well. So this is the very first year, a very rare car, because even though they ran this body style until 2002 for the E55, they updated the body kit and the interior just 1 year after releasing the car. So this has a different front bumper. It's kind of more subtle, different body kit, some interior bits that I'm going to show you in a moment. And this particular car is very, very special. It's a one owner, about 90,000 original miles, and it's over here at Mancuso Collision and Custom. This is their warehouse. This is where I make pretty much all my body shop videos. They fixed up a bunch of my cars. They have an amazing collection as well. But they picked this car up from the original owner, and unfortunately it had some rust issues, which is kind of like the Achilles heel of these 210 chassis E-classes. So it wasn't too bad. It was starting to bubble. And because there was a one owner, somewhat low mileage, they went down the rabbit hole of fixing everything and painting the entire car. So this is probably one of the nicest examples in the country now. So they're not completely done with the restoration. They have to refurbish the wheels, even though they look great. A little bit of curb rash and a few other things, clean up the interior, but it's almost done. And this one will be for sale. No link just yet. Check back later. Like I said, they just have to finish a few things up. So if you remember back then, this car competed with the E39 M5, and those have skyrocketed as well if you can find an unmolested, clean example. And it's actually easier to find a 210 E55 that hasn't been cut up and modified because people just never modified these cars. And definitely when you compare that to how many modified the E39 M5. So there's plenty of these that are sitting around bone stock. They may have a little bit of rust, or if you find one in a southern dry climate and you find one with a good body, you are in for a surprise on how nice these cars are. They are super, super basic and just ultra reliable. So a few years ago, I made a video on what I believe to be the most reliable AMG car ever made, and that still holds true. I think it is the C55 AMG, the 2005 and 2006, but this came in a very close second place. The only reason why this wasn't the most reliable AMG car ever made is because of the rust. The rust was a serious, serious problem on these cars, especially if you lived in an area like Chicago where I live, where they use salt. So anyway, let's pop the hood on this. I'm gonna show you guys the power plant. I'm gonna show you an engine that, although it doesn't have any kind of forced induction at all, produced more torque than the 2003 and 2004 Cobra Mustang, supercharged Cobra Mustang. And that would be this, the M113 engine. So this was an engine that Mercedes was building for some of their 430 cars and the 500 cars. And AMG tweaked this one. So they did some modifications to the cylinder heads, different camshaft profiles, different intake manifold, a more free-flowing exhaust, and this produces 349 horsepower and a crazy 391 foot-pounds of torque. So I'm comparing it to the 0304 Cobra because they are similar in size. They're both V8s. That one was a 4.6, this is a 5.4. But that one needed a root-style blower to produce 390 foot-pounds of torque, and this one didn't need any of that. And these cars feel so good off the line. It's a heavy car, it needs that torque, and it is so much fun to drive. The power is just instantaneous. It handles well. There's no air suspension on these. So I think these actually handle a little bit better than the 211 chassis E55. And there is just nothing on here to break. They are rock solid. So when you're comparing these to a similar era Audi performance sedan or the M5 of the era, something you have to consider is the reliability factor. There are no timing chain guides and timing chain issues with these engines. These M113 engines last basically forever. When I was a master tech at the dealership, we joked that these were just like the Chevy small blocks of Mercedes. They just kept on going forever. They were so basic. There was nothing. We never opened these engines up for anything. They'd have a little leaking upper breather chamber on the valve cover. That's about it. Basically no failures. These things run and run forever, and they're paired with an automatic transmission that, although it doesn't really shift that fast, especially to today's standards, is one of the strongest transmissions ever put in a car. So when comparing to the M5, I know it's a manual, I know it handles a little bit better than this, but the reliability factor has to come into play here. This is a car that you can drive for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles and potentially never open the engine.
Probably one of the quietest performance cars ever. That's just how they were. Oh, you can hear that clutch fan. That's pretty much all you hear. They really need an electric fan, that's for sure. I think the facelift ones got the electric fan, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can really feel the power. It's instantaneous. There's no waiting for anything. And although the transmission shifts kind of slow, it's just, you know, kind of normal for this time frame. It's precise. It's luxurious. It's faster than probably most people that were driving stick shifts at the time. So this is actually a really, really quick car, as we see in all of the magazine articles from back in the day that gave this thing pretty high praises. Now, what kind of dethroned this car was the E39 M5. So it had more horsepower, 400 horsepower. It was a manual transmission. So I do believe those will probably always be worth more than the 210 chassis E55, but you have to factor in the reliability. These were truly bulletproof German machines at the time. You cannot say that about the other German performance sedans of the early 2000s and mid 2000s at all. You guys all know this. So the interior on this car is very unique. My 99 E55 had a pretty cool interior as well, where the inlays were kind of purple, but this one has the white, which I like much better as long as you find one that's not completely destroyed. So although this is dirty, this interior is going to clean up perfectly. These seats hold up really, really well. Mercedes has always had really good leather seats, so they don't really show too much wear, especially for being 21 years old at this point, which is crazy. So the interior is super, super comfortable. I took mine on a couple 1,000-mile road trips back in the day. I mean, I daily drove it for 3 years, and it was one of the most comfortable cars. Everything's in the right spot in the car. Your arm is resting right here perfectly. It's at a great level. This right here, this handle on the door panel is perfect, and they handle really well. So these might handle a little bit better than the Airmatic version that came out in 2003, the 211 chassis E-Class. So this just has regular steel springs, regular shocks, all tuned by AMG, as well as the sway bars. So it handles really well, and there's really nothing in the suspension that's going to go wrong. So again, the reliability of the whole car is fantastic, and it's just so basic. If you look at all of the controls and dials, the radio, the climate control, there's nothing much going on here. This is an old school car, and that can be really appealing in an age where everything has just turned completely computer controlled, touch screens everywhere. This is just a nice driver with really not much to distract you, and the ride is nice. So in 2000, they updated this car, which is kind of weird because it came out in 99. So the 2000, 2001, and 2002 had a different body kit. They had a different front bumper, I believe a different rear bumper. The interior was improved. I gotta say, I like the interior on the newer ones much better. You got your steering wheel controls, the cluster looked nicer. Instead of this kind of old school, I wouldn't call it gated, but this kind of older shifter, you had the Tiptronic setup on the newer ones, which is nice. This one to manually shift is kind of weird, and quite honestly, you would never do it. It's just too slow of a transmission to really play with. Just let it shift automatically and you're good to go. So there were some refreshes that came in 2000, which makes the 99 really, really rare. And if you guys are looking at a 99, some people like the subtle styling, make sure that it has the original front AMG bumper, because they're basically impossible to find. If you find one, someone's gonna probably ask a couple grand for it. So if anyone throughout the many years that these have been around got into an accident, sometimes they'd get paid out by insurance and just put like an E430 bumper on the front and call it a day. It's exactly how mine was. I bought it sight unseen at an auction, of course. I came and I'm like, that's not an AMG bumper. There were bad pictures, but don't make that mistake. The front AMG bumper, especially in the 99s, is very, very valuable. I mean, it's not even that the Audi and the BMWs of this time were like decently reliable. They were the worst. Yeah, they were like literally the worst of the worst of the worst. And I know this one, a little bit more bland, subtle. It's kind of definitely a sleeper, understated, but you just can't say enough about the drivetrain. That's got to count for something. Solid. Okay, so as far as value, how I see this moving along here, these have to go up in value. You can pick up kind of a clapped out one for about 6 or 7 grand, maybe 150, 200,000 miles, rust, kind of a beat up interior. That's sort of what I did when I daily drove my 99. It was $5,000 many years ago, and I just wanted the experience of driving it. So that the drivetrain and the mechanics were perfect, because these things last forever, like I've been saying. But it was rusted. It didn't have the right front bumper, so I didn't feel bad driving it, and I drove it all the time, every single day, even in the snow and the winter and everything. Love that car. So you can get probably like a 100,000 mile example that's cleaner, maybe just a little bit of rust starting to pop up for like 10-ish, maybe 11. And then they go into the upper teens, low 20s when you get into something more pristine. But I still think there is room to grow. I don't think they're going to reach E39 M5 status, with the stick shift on those, and just kind of the more cult following on those cars. But those have just blown up in price. It's insane. Some of these E39 M5s, the low mileage, even the middle of the road mileage, like 50,000. I mean, I've seen them for 30, 40. Some of the really low mileage ones are touching 50. So I would say that This isn't going to reach that, but it should be much, much higher. It's crazy that you can still buy one of these for about 10-ish that's in decent condition. Now, they have been going up in price. I'm starting to see them actually more expensive than a similar mileage 211 chassis E55, which you get a lot more car with the 211, but you also can run into a lot more problems. And people are just wanting to collect these now. They're very, very rare, only a couple thousand total brought to the States. So overall, I think these are going to be kind of the next AMG cars, if you can find them in good condition, to go up. This is an excellent car for a collector as well. And I really want one. It's one of the cars I regret selling the most out of probably the 40 or 50 cars that I've owned. Look at this. Look at this. What are the chances? A silver E55 AMG 210. Get out of here, landscaper. That is crazy. That thing looked real nice. And there you have it, the 210 chassis E55 AMG, my favorite AMG car of the era, and one that I think is going to increase in value very, very soon. So with that being said, follow me at LegitStreetCars on all the social media. Check out the LegitStreetCars Patreon community link down below, where I reveal to you my latest car purchases way before they make it to YouTube. There are legit tips on there. I'm answering questions. It's a good time. It starts at only $2 a month, and it supports the channel. Also, link down below. Don't forget to get your $3 starter set for the Harry's Razors. And don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, subscribe if you're new. I think that's everything. Have an awesome day. I'll catch all of you in the next video.